Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Cold War drama, Dana Andrews as Matt Cvetic in I Was a Communist for the FBI, going back to November 5th, 1952. This episode is entitled No Second Chance.
I was a communist for the FBI. Starring Dana Andrews in an exciting tale of danger and espionage. I was a communist for the FBI. Many of the incidents in the story you are about to hear are based on the actual records and authentic experiences of Matt Cvetic, who for 9 fantastic years lived as a communist for the FBI. Here is our star, Dana Andrews, as Matt Cvetic. I spent 9 years living a nightmare called communism, a nightmare from which the awakening is more terrifying than the dream. During those years, I hated communism constantly. And occasionally, I hated you too, mister, because I was afraid you wouldn't recognize the nightmare until you and your wife and kids faced that terrifying awakening. I'm still afraid of that. So take warning from my story. It's a story of communism. Now here is Dana Andrews as Matt Cvetic, undercover man. This story from the confidential file is marked No Second Chance.
Well, it was quite a meeting, Comrade Cvetic.
You didn't ask me to wait until the others had left just to tell me that, Comrade Harden.
No. You have no time for anything except party business, do you, Comrade Cvetic?
When I joined the party, I put everything else behind me, just as you advised the new members at tonight's cell meeting.
Of course. Unfortunately, some members forget that advice.
The party knows how to handle those termites.
Yes. Now we've reached the reason for asking you to wait. A matter of termite exterminating.
What do you mean, comrade?
I don't know the details. I know only that you have been ordered to Los Angeles to cooperate with the MVD in a matter of termite exterminating. You'll go by train tomorrow.
Hello, Warren speaking.
This is your phone booth man again. Get me?
Got you. Go ahead.
I'm taking the train to Los Angeles tomorrow.
Hello?
Yeah.
Well, what's the deal?
Termite exterminating, they call it.
Uh-huh. Who's the termite?
No one here knows. I'll find that out in Los Angeles.
Okay. We'll pick you up in L.A. If it turns out that you're the termite, call that Hempstead number we gave you.
Right.
Good luck.
It hadn't occurred to me that I might be the termite up for extermination, and I didn't like thinking about it. That kind of thinking drives you nuts. So when this girl sat down beside me in the club car and smiled, I was glad to forget the party's rotten business. If I'd known what that smile was going to cost, I'd have jumped off the train without waiting for it to stop. But I didn't know, and the girl was young and lovely. And when she spoke, I made the mistake of forgetting that a man can never mix romance and undercover work.
What do you see that's so interesting?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I really don't make a practice of speaking to strangers, but you've been staring out that window so long I couldn't help asking.
I was just thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry I disturbed you.
I'm not. You've given me something a lot more pleasant to think about.
Thank you. Are you going clear through to Los Angeles?
Yeah. Are you?
Yes, it's my home.
You know, I've often wondered what it would be like to live out there.
Oh, it's wonderful. At least it used to be before my parents died. That was 5 years ago. I haven't been back since.
Oh. But you still call it home?
Yes. My brother still lives in the old house. He's kept everything just the way it was before Mother and Dad died.
Oh.
Even my room is just the way I left it.
Sounds like quite a sentimentalist.
You don't approve of sentimentalists?
Well, I don't meet many of them in my business.
Oh. What business are you in?
I'm traveling at the moment.
Oh, then this is a business trip.
Strictly.
No pleasure?
No pleasure.
Well, we'll have to do something about that. Why don't you phone me just as soon as you finish your business? We'll see the town together.
Well, it sounds like a great idea.
I'm glad you like it.
There's just one tiny flaw in it.
What's that?
We don't know each other's names.
Oh, we were talking so easily, I forgot that we haven't been friends for years. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be. I feel very flattered. My name's Matt Cvetic.
And I'm Helen Enright.
Would you have dinner with me, Helen?
I'd love to, Matt.
That's the way it began. No hint of tragedy or a double cross. Just a guy and a gal who were attracted to each other and gave that attraction a chance to develop. And during the several days on the train, it did. The FBI, communism, plots and counterplots, all were pushed to the back of my mind by Helen Enright. And if Helen didn't exactly throw herself at me, she made it plain that the only other man in her life was her brother, Jack.
Oh, Jack's several years older than I am, and since Mother and Dad died, he's been wonderful to me.
From what you've told me, he's quite a guy.
Oh, he is, Matt. I'm terribly anxious to have you two like each other.
Well, you won't have to worry about me, because if he's your brother, I like him, even if I hate him.
Oh, I don't think anyone could ever hate him, any more than they could hate you. Did I say something funny?
Yes, very.
What was it?
We'll talk about it some other time. Right now, we better get our things together. We'll be in Los Angeles pretty soon. Our baggage collected, Helen and I sat silently holding hands as our train moved slowly through the Los Angeles yards and into the Union Station. And before I'd helped her to the platform, I'd almost decided that this termite exterminating mission would be my last job for either the party or the FBI. Then, hand in hand, Helen and I walked up the ramp to meet her brother.
There he is. There he is, Matt. The tall brunette in the gray sports jacket. Jack! Jack! Here! Oh, hurry, Matt. Hurry.
Coming.
Oh, Jack!
Helen.
Oh,
You look wonderful, sis.
Oh, you look even more wonderful, Jack, doesn't he, Matt?
Well, he looks good, but frankly, you're more my type.
Idiot. Oh, Jack, I'm anxious to have you meet Matt Cvetic.
Well, judging from Sis's attitude, I'd better be happy to know you.
Well, I hope you are, Jack.
I'm sure I am. You, live in L.A.?
No.
Well, come on out to the house for lunch. We'll talk it over.
Oh, thanks, but I have to finish this job first.
Oh, when will I... when will we see you, Matt?
The very first second I'm free.
I hope it won't be too long.
I'll make sure that it isn't, Helen.
Give us a call just as soon as you can, Matt. You'll find us in the phone book under Jack Enright.
Helen and Jack Enright had just passed out of sight when the comrade stepped up and tapped me on the shoulder. At that moment, I was grateful for their waiting until I was alone. Later, well, after they'd identified themselves, we got into their car and drove to a house on Alvarado, where they gave me my orders.
This is a delicate mission, Comrade Cvetic. There must be no bungling.
If you don't think I can handle the job...
We think you can handle it perfectly. It was just a warning.
What's the job?
I like your zealous attitude, Comrade Cvetic.
Thanks.
We suspect a local high-ranking party member of traitorous activities. This situation is peculiar in that the party member in question has powerful friends back east, members of the Central Committee. We must have absolute proof of his aiding the enemy before we can exert any discipline.
Who is the suspect?
He's known in the party as Comrade Green. His real name is Jack Enright.
Jack Enright? I just met a man named Jack Enright.
That's your man, Comrade Cvetic. We know that he intends to leave the party, that he's engaged in activities detrimental to party interests. Your job is to prove what we know.
But how am I supposed to get close enough to Enright to get this proof?
You're going to be his house guest.
House guest?
Party members often stay at Enright's to save expenses. The arrangements have been made.
Oh, well, but if he knows that I'm a party member, how can I get any information against him?
Enright's sister should be able to furnish you with all the proof we need. And judging from the way she was playing up to you at the station, you shouldn't have any difficulty, comrade.
Well, what's she going to think about me being her brother's house guest when she knows he just met me?
Enright will be told to explain that you phoned the house and he learned that you're a fraternity brother. Naturally, he invited you to stay with him.
Have you ever dreamed you were walking down the street without clothes and unable to run or hide yourself? Well, that's the way I felt when I got out of the cab and walked up to the Enright's house. Ashamed, embarrassed, and dirty. And feeling that way, I had to pretend that I was happy to be there. And for Helen's sake, Jack played his part, too.
Just put your bags down over there, Matt. Why don't you let Matt sit down and have a drink, Helen, while you go up and make sure that his room is ready,
All right, Jack, but don't try to trap Matt into spending all his time talking about fraternity matters. You remember I saw him first.
I'll remember. There's something you should remember, too, Cvetic.
Yes?
This isn't a threat. It's a statement of absolute fact. Stay away from my sister, or I'll kill you.
Later in the day, I reported the conversation to the MVD. They weren't exactly sympathetic.
There's a strong possibility that Enright meant exactly what he said, Comrade Cvetic.
Then what do I do?
Follow orders. We must have an airtight case against Enright, and the only way to get it is through the girl.
But suppose I can't get the information from Helen, from the girl.
That would be very unfortunate for you, comrade. Enright has threatened to kill you in the presence of reliable witnesses.
What witnesses?
They can be produced. In the unlikely event that you fail to secure the required information, other witnesses will testify that they saw Enright kill you.
Enright doesn't seem to have much chance.
None. You were sent here to help us eliminate him, Comrade Cvetic. And you will accomplish your mission, alive or dead.
November 5th, 1952, I Was a Communist for the FBI on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Dana Andrews in I Was a Communist for the FBI, going back to November 5th, 1952, No Second Chance.
Now back to Dana Andrews, starring as Matt Cvetic in I Was a Communist for the FBI, and the second act of our story.
Alive or dead, you will accomplish your mission, alive or dead. Those words of the MVD goon were beating a tattoo in my brain as I headed back to Enright's. Then, while I stood waiting for a bus, a car pulled up beside me, and the driver said,
I'm going your way, wherever you're headed. Get in.
I got in, and the car moved out into traffic. It was my FBI contact. I told him about the spot I was in and asked for his advice.
Well, I can't give you advice, Matt. I can only give you orders.
What are they?
Get all the information possible on Jack Enright. Maybe he's quitting the Reds, and maybe he isn't.
What do you know about him?
Well, we know he has lines reaching back to the Central Committee, maybe even further. His party connections are so solid that he may have orders to go underground, unknown to the local goons.
But he didn't warn me to stay away from his sister until after he'd learned that I was a commie. Why would he do that if he only intends going underground?
I've given up trying to understand any American mind that can accept communism, Matt. It could be any one of a dozen reasons, none of which would make sense to you or me.
You still want me to play up to Helen, his sister?
She seems to be Enright's one weak spot.
Okay, but I'll never feel clean again. This was the lowest moment I'd ever spent as a communist for the FBI. If Helen had been a Red herself, I'd have had no compunctions about trapping her in any way possible. But she wasn't a Red. She was sweet and innocent and naive. And for some reason, she went for me. Convincing her that she was in love with me was the easiest and the lousiest assignment I ever had.
Jack's gone now, Matt.
Be right with you, baby.
I don't know why we have to be so secretive when Jack's around.
I guess I'm a little self-conscious because we're, fraternity brothers.
I don't follow that at all. Let's talk about something else, Matt.
What, for instance?
Us, for instance.
Should I tell you how I smile whenever I think of you?
I know the feeling, Matt.
And how a room lights up for me when you walk into it.
Oh, Matt, I love you.
And I love you, Helen.
Hold me closer, Matt.
Oh, darling. Oh, my poor, poor darling.
Why do you say that?
Why, I don't really know.
I wonder.
Wonder about what?
If you've just been pretending, trying to be kind.
I certainly haven't tried to be kind.
That must be why we've always waited until Jack left the house.
What are you talking about?
My brother. It's because of my brother that you can never really love me.
But I do love you, Helen. In spite of your brother.
In spite of my brother.
In spite of anything.
Then you know.
No. No what?
My brother, Jack, is a communist.
Oh, Helen. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know who you're talking to.
I do know what I'm saying, Matt. I'm saying that my brother is a communist. An enemy of my country and my people. And I know who I'm talking to.
You do? Who?
The man I love. The only person in the world I can turn to.
I should have been very proud of myself right then. I'd managed to make Helen Enright fall in love with me, just the way I'd been ordered to. There was just one small fly in the butter. I was in love with Helen Enright, too. FBI, MVD, patriotism, communism, my love for Helen, all whirling in my brain. But in any case, it was still my job to get the information against her brother. And the next day, Helen dropped that information right into my lap.
Matt, darling.
Be right with you, Helen. Oh, I take it that Jack has left.
About 5 minutes ago.
And you're just letting me know? Who's the new man in your life?
Matt Cvetic. And I didn't call you sooner because I was reading something. Something very important to us.
Did someone leave us $1 million in his will or something?
Much more important than that.
2 million.
No. Jack is quitting the Communist Party.
Are you sure, Helen?
Positive, Matt. Oh, darling, now there's nothing in the world to interfere with our happiness.
Nothing in the world to interfere with our happiness. Nothing but the FBI, the stinking Communist Party, and me, Matt Cvetic. Because I loved Helen, I didn't run to the MVD with my information. I didn't have to. They picked me up on the street while I was out walking trying to think things through. And in the house on Alvarado, they put the pressure on.
You're taking much too long on this assignment, Comrade Cvetic.
It isn't easy to get the information we want without tipping my hand.
Particularly if you're not too anxious to get that information, eh, Comrade?
What do you mean?
If you were weak enough, foolish enough to think that you were in love with Helen Enright, you might try to protect your brother.
Now, just a second. If I'm going to do this job, I'm going to do it my way. That takes time.
You have no more time, Comrade Cvetic. You'll deliver the information against Enright tomorrow afternoon.
And if I can't?
Tomorrow evening, the local police will arrest Enright for your murder.
After that pleasant little conversation, I went to a public phone and called the Hempstead emergency number. The FBI arranged to pick me up.
Get in, Matt. You sounded a little disturbed. What's up?
I got the information on Enright.
Yeah?
November 5th, 1952. I was a communist for the FBI. The conclusion follows these messages on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now the conclusion of I Was a Communist for the FBI, starring Dana Andrews, from November 5th, 1952.
He's quitting the party.
Oh, we know that.
You do?
He's going underground.
No, he's really quitting. He told his sister.
We've had other information from New York, Matt. Enright is going underground.
But the MVD is really putting the heat on me for information against him.
Enright's party orders are apparently top secret. The local goons don't know about it. If they want information against him, give it to them.
What?
If these guys get a little overzealous and give Enright a working over, the Central Committee is going to be very unhappy. Someone will come out and work over these guys.
Yeah, well, I like that idea. There's just one thing wrong.
What's that?
I'm in love with Enright's sister.
That makes it tough.
How can I turn in her brother and never face her again? I love Helen. I want to marry her and settle down.
I don't blame you a bit, Matt. But knowing what you know, could you do that before you finish your job?
Beating the Reds isn't all my responsibility.
Of course it isn't, Matt. You could quit right now and no one could blame you. No one would blame you. Except maybe Matt Cvetic.
I hated the FBI right then. Yes, and I hated my country, too. I hated everything that stood between me and Helen. Most of all, I hated communism. Because I realized that until communism was destroyed, there could be no love or hope or security for people like Helen and me. I went back to see Helen once more before making my final decision.
You were gone a long time, Matt. It must have been awfully important business.
I guess you could call it that.
Well, I feel pretty important, too.
You're pretty important to me.
Well, I'll be even more important when you see this.
What is it?
A paper with a list of names. I found it while I was cleaning Jack's room. It had fallen behind his dresser.
Here, let me see it.
Of course. See? It says underground contacts, memorize and destroy.
Yeah. Jack doesn't know you found this.
Oh, of course not, silly. He hasn't been home.
Well, don't mention it to him.
Why not?
Oh, it might upset him if he knew that someone else had this information. Let me hold you close, Helen.
Oh, darling.
Oh, I love you so much.
And I love you, darling.
I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I never will again.
You better not. After we're married, if you so much as look at another girl, I'll...
Oh, you better forget about marrying me, Helen.
Forget? Matt, what have I done? What's wrong?
You haven't done anything, darling. It's just that, last night...
Yes, Matt?
I lay awake for a long time, thinking about us, Helen. Thinking about how much I love you, how much I want you.
And deciding that you wouldn't marry me.
Not that I wouldn't marry you, dear. That I couldn't. That I couldn't change my way of life. Not at this time. I'm going away.
Then you don't love me. That's the reason you're leaving me.
I'm leaving you because I do love you, Helen. I will as long as I live. Kiss me goodbye. After making a copy of Enright's list of underground contacts, I gave it to the MVD, together with Helen's statement that Jack Enright was quitting the party.
This is all the proof we need, Comrade Cvetic. Congratulations.
Congratulations. You just played Judas Iscariot to the brother of the girl you love. I made contact with the FBI and turned over the original list of communist names. Then I bought a ticket home. I was sitting in a little restaurant that night when my FBI contact sat down beside me.
Congratulations, Matt. That list is invaluable.
What happened to Jack Enright?
He's definitely through with the Reds. The MVD goons beat him up badly before we could get there. Then they wired New York, bragging about it. New York isn't going to be happy with these guys.
What about Helen?
She took it big, Matt.
She loved her brother.
Her brother and you.
Helen called for me, and I couldn't answer, then or ever again. If I didn't know it before, I realized then that you can't mix a woman and undercover work. At least, not a woman you love. Of course, there are women in the party, women who are interested in other party members. But I've known Helen, and I choose to walk alone.
November 5th, 1952, I Was a Communist for the FBI on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. A lot of big names in this episode of Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police, including Elliot Lewis, Hanley Stafford, and the Octopus played by Gail Gordon. Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police, November 5th, 1938.
Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police. When Barney flies to Black Pass to pick up Chief Tipo and his prisoner, the chief pilot of the Octopus squadron of planes, he is attacked by another Octopus plane which has followed him there expressly to destroy him. Barney, being the better aviator, outmaneuvers the enemy pilot and sends his plane hurtling to earth in flames. Meantime, Speed has brought Larry Winfield back from Nagchuka to tell his story to Clint. He has just begun when Barney lands, and when Clint learns of the attack near Black Pass, he determines to go after the Octopus that very night.
Larry got as far in his story as telling us about Quan Mu loaning him money for his gambling, Barney, and then you landed, so we still have to hear the rest of what happened.
Well, I'm glad I came in time to hear it. Glad to see you're up and around, too, Larry.
Well, thanks, Dunlap. Marcia's told me a lot about you.
I'll bet she has.
Will you have some hot tea, Barney?
Don't mind if I do, Dawa. Thanks. Clint, Black Pass is the coldest place in the world, bar none.
Never mind the weather report, Barney. We've got a lot to do tonight. Where's Chief Tipo?
Probably trying to get his breath back from that flight from Black Pass. I had to do a lot of aerobatics to get out of the way of them machine gun bullets.
They didn't miss you, though, Barney. That plane needs plenty of repair work. Lots of holes in the wings and the fuselage.
Kid, all I was interested in was that I wouldn't get any holes in me.
Praise heaven that you escaped.
Thanks, Searing. And Chief Tipo wins some of that praise, too. He'd never flown before, but he handled that machine gun like a veteran. And I was really putting that ship through her paces.
Supposing you hold your story and let Larry tell his.
Sure, go ahead, Larry.
Well, let me see. Where was I?
Quan Mu was paying your gambling debts.
Oh, yes. Well, one evening at the casino, he spoke about my work. saying that he'd heard excellent reports about it and that I would be a credit to any company I chose to work for.
Same old banana oil.
Banana oil, Barney?
Yeah, never mind that, kid. We won't go into that now.
Well, I laughed his compliments off at first, but as he continued, I glimpsed a more sinister meaning behind them. He began talking about the money I owed him, and I finally lost my temper, I guess, and asked him the amount.
It was probably staggering.
Yes, Mr. Searing. I couldn't see how I had possibly lost that much. But he insisted and reminded me that I had given him a note covering all my gambling debts.
A blank note, eh? And you were as foolish as to do that.
I told you I was riding high in those days, Barlow. Overconfident, that was me. But I sure got over it.
What happened next, Larry?
I told Wu I couldn't possibly pay up. It'd take me the rest of my life unless somebody suddenly left me $1 million. To my surprise, he agreed and suggested that I work the debt off by coming in with a company that he was forming.
I smell an octopus.
You mean the new company really belonged to the Octopus?
Sure, that guy's got a tentacle in everybody's pie.
Right, but I didn't know the real owner of the company then, and wasn't interested in it either. I told Wu that I couldn't pay it off that way because my employer would be set back for many months if I left. He trusted me completely, and I had data on the territory that only I could decipher.
I see. Well, go on, Larry.
Well, he said that that's why I would be valuable to his company, that they wanted my data.
Is that modern business?
Not real business, Mr. Searing. Octopus gangsters are much worse than Tibetan brigands.
What'd you say to that, Larry?
I couldn't believe him at first. Thought he was joking because he had such a good reputation around Hong Kong. But he soon convinced me differently. And all the while he had a smile on his face.
Yes, beware of the man who smiles constantly.
Check, Barlow. That smile covered plenty of trouble. Wu told me that I must leave my present connections, bringing my statistics and data with me. If I did not, he would reveal my gambling debt to my employer and all Hong Kong.
But gee, Larry, that would have been better than getting hooked up with the Octopus.
Yes, Speed. If I had known then what I know now. But I'd never heard of the Octopus. I thought Wu's company was just a competitor trying to get ahead of my employer.
What did you do then, Mr. Winfield?
Well, I asked him to give me that night to think it over. I'd met Bob Gilmore by that time and was with him that evening. He noticed that I was low about something and kept questioning me. But of course, I couldn't tell him anything.
It might have saved you a lot of trouble if you had.
I know. I'd been trying to get him a job with my outfit ever since I first met him, and now I thought maybe he could step into my shoes.
You mean you double-crossed your company on purpose?
No, I just left them, Speed. Resigned. I worked all that night on my notes, explaining them in writing, deciphering my findings for whoever might get my job. Then I took the packet of papers around to my employer's hotel and left them there for him. I couldn't face him.
You mean you gave up your job to throw in with Quan Wu, but you didn't take any of your findings with you?
Yes. Of course, I didn't tell Wu that at first. He took it for granted that I had done what he demanded and took me to his home. There he said we'd hear the voice of the real owner of the new company, but we could not see him because of his political connections.
Political connections, my foot. Just the old octopus runaround.
His voice came through a loudspeaker. He asked me for my data, and then I told him that I had brought nothing from my old company, that I would work for him, but that it would have to be from scratch. I would not betray my old employer.
I see. And what did the octopus say to that?
Plenty. Things happened fast and furious after that. I was slugged and woke up in a cell. Had nothing but bread and water for days while they tried to make me reveal my things. Wu brought me newspapers which told of my disappearance under... Later, I learned that in spite of the data I had left behind, my old company had failed.
Failed? But how could they? You left them everything they needed to work on?
I left it, Speed, but it was stolen by an octopus operator who made it appear that I had been the thief. A price was set on my head, and the octopus laughingly offered to set me free now that he had accomplished what he wanted.
The dirty dog. You couldn't have left him, no matter how much you wanted to.
No. It was all like some crazy dream. 1 minute I'd been getting along fine, a good job and a promising future. Then, overnight, everything was changed. I figured my life was ruined, but I wanted to save Marcia from disgrace. I hadn't told her anything about it in the beginning, and later, of course, my letters were held by the octopus. But it was just as well. I wanted her to think me dead. Better that way than believing I had disgraced our name.
Mm-hmm. Anything more?
Nothing of vital importance, Barlow. They made me work in my capacity as engineer, but it was just routine.
Well, that just about ends the octopus case, boys. We've got all the evidence we need for his arrest.
And now we can start for the path of the Iron Dagger?
You're not going, Speed.
What?
No, you've come a long way with Barney and me, but from now on, we've got to go on alone. That is, without you. It's far too dangerous, the actual arrest.
But, Clint, I've gone to his castle before, and alone, with Dawa to get those pictures.
Pictures? Oh, the ones we telephoned to the chief.
Oh, see, that reminds me. We never did show them to Larry, Speed. Remember, Barney landed just as you came back with them.
That is right. We were so elated over Barney's return that we completely forgot about the pictures.
And since then, Mr. Winfield's story has claimed our attention.
But why all the excitement?
Well, Larry met the real Mounier in Hong Kong.
He did? Boy, then he'll be able to tell in a minute if the octopus disguise is a phony. Of course, we know it is, but when you come after a guy in strange territory, the more proof of guilt, the better.
I've got them right here in my pocket, Larry. Yeah, here they are.
These?
Yeah. Does his disguise look anything like the real thing?
But these pictures are of Paul Mounier.
You can't mean that, Larry. Examine them more carefully. If you identify those pictures as being Mounier, then we lose most of the ground we've gained.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barlow, but it is exactly as I remember him. No, wait.
What is it, Larry?
The eyes. I remember now. Mounier had vivid blue eyes. These pictures show the eyes to be brown or black.
And you can't disguise eyes. That's it, boys. Come on, let's get ready for the attack.
And I can come too, Clint. Please, I've done everything else with you. Let me be there when you arrest the octopus.
The kid's right, Clint. It'll be dangerous, but he's earned the right to be in at the catch.
Oh, all right then, Speed. Go tell Chief Tipo to round up as many of his men as he can. We start from here within an hour.
May I not accompany you, Mr. Barlow?
No, Dawa. Your place is here. In case we should, fail, you and your father must remain here to get word to our headquarters in New York, telling Chief Riley the whole story. And he'll send other operators to do the job.
Would it not be more wise to wait for Gilmore and his men, Mr. Barlow?
No, the octopus has already had too much time to gather an armed force. We must strike tonight. And I'll depend on you, Mr. Searing, to see that Bob follows us as soon as possible.
I'll say so. Something tells me for once there's going to be a hot time in that pass tonight.
Who is it?
It is I, Master. Quan Mu.
Quan Mu. Quan Mu. What has happened to you? You look as if you had come through fire.
I have, Master. Dunlap shot our plane down in the Black Pass attack.
I knew something had happened. You were so long overdue.
The plane burst into flames, but they did not reach the pilot's compartment until just before we landed. The pilot managed to level off and land. I flung the door open and escaped just as the gasoline tank exploded.
You lead a charmed life.
No. I feel I was spared only to warn you, Master. We have come to the end of our road.
What do you mean, you fool? Has your recent danger made you mad?
No, but Barlow and the others will be here at any moment.
Why? Because Dunlap lived through his flight and returned with Chief Tipo and Chan? Bah! It'll take them time to attack this pass.
No. I heard whispers as I came here. They thought me a wandering beggar. My clothes were so torn and blackened. They talked freely. Gilmore is bringing a force of men from Nagchuka. Another detail of police has already arrived at Mardak. They have discovered our slave headquarters here.
What? At Mardak? Then we did not silence Splinters soon enough.
No. The secret police have control of our vital spots. They are closing in on us. What chance have we to escape?
What chance? None, because I have no wish to escape.
You mean you will die here? We are to be trapped in this windy pass like rats?
No, but the secret police will be trapped. Franwu, I have not been idle during your absence. My call has been answered. Instead of slaves in the room below, an army awaits my command.
You will fight the secret police?
And all Tibet, if I must. But there will be no need. Tibetans are a peaceful lot and will bow to my will. But now I will station my army in the pass and in the surrounding hills. Let the secret police take me. If they dare.
November 5th, 1938, Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Would you thank this station and support their advertisers? It's their kindness and courtesy that allow us to be with you each and every time you roll around here on your favorite station. Now, if you miss a day, you do not have to miss a single episode of Classic Radio Theater. They're all available on demand at classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. You can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting. You can contact me there. You can find our social media links up there. You can also find a list of locations where our shows are available for download by a podcast. And, of course, if you'd like to help us grow our collection here, you can buy me a coffee. That buy me a coffee money goes strictly to buy us additional Classic Radio Theater programs. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.